Hello and welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. We've been taking a look at different elections around the country during this pivotal year. Today, we're taking a closer look at the Pennsylvania governor's race. A Quinnipiac poll out today puts the Republican incumbent, Governor Tom Corbett, trailing all of his Democratic opponents. The leader of the pack, political newcomer Tom Wolf. He's a businessman who has promised to spend $10 million of his own money on this primary. Wolf leads Corbett by almost 20 points, 52% to 33%, if the election were held today. We were hoping to have more from the Quinnipiac polling company and its assistant director, Tim Malloy. We'll try to get to that in a moment, but I'd like to bring in Andy Tillis, who's back with us. Andy, we're taking a look at the Pennsylvania governor's race. You just told me you have some history in Pennsylvania. Tell me about it.
Born and raised in Pennsylvania.
All right, so this is an issue I'm sure you're going to tune into, but an interesting race. Anytime we see the incumbent facing so much heat when he's trying to run for re-election.
Yeah, he's really trailing. It's not going so good.
Yeah, those poll numbers aren't that great. All right, let's take a step back and we'll talk more about what we were discussing in the last hour. You were taking a closer look at how caregivers are affected. New information out. Worldwide, we could see as many as 100 million people affected by Alzheimer's or dementia. Talk to us a little bit more about what you learned about how these caregivers are affected.
Well, it's amazing how many people do take on the job of caregiver for the elderly because they don't trust the nurses and the assisted living facilities to take as good a care as they can do themselves, which is really a shame in itself. But most of the caregivers take on such a burden and think they can do it all.
And what are some of the biggest problems that you saw when you were researching this?
They're coming down with heart disease and things that shouldn't be appearing at such a young age for these people that are taking on a burden that is really for nurses, doctors, and people that are trained in caregiving. So it's like you, all of a sudden, your mother's ill, God forbid, and you have to take care of her. You have to work, you have to do everything that you've already been doing, and then add that on top of your already full life. You've got kids, you've got a wife, you've got everything to do. Now you have an ailing mother, and the guilt of not taking care of your mother is going to also make you ill. So what do you do?
A tough spot, to say the least. You mentioned heart disease. You mentioned the emotional impact on this. We had Dr. Scott McFarland talking to us about some questions that he were asked. And if you don't mind, Andy, share with us a little bit more of your personal story on this issue.
Unfortunately, my grandmother did have Alzheimer's. And a lot of people confuse dementia with Alzheimer's. And there really is a big difference in my mind because my grandmother, I think, had dementia. She was very happy all the time. Now, that's much easier to deal with, to be with somebody that might forget things but is happy and a pleasure.
Sure.
Now there's people that have what they call sundowners. When the sun goes down and it gets dark, they literally, it's like Jekyll and Hyde. They could be Little Mary Sunshine, and then next thing you know, you are sitting next to somebody that you don't know that is yelling at you and taking everything out on you. And again, you're just absorbing all of this because you don't want to yell at this person. They don't know what they're doing. It's not their fault.
Right.
And so now you're absorbing everything, and it gets to be quite a burden on the caregiver. So now, not only is the elderly person sick, now you've got the caregiver who's not what they used to be, and now you've got another person that's sick.
And it's a 24/7 job, as you mentioned here. Now, and again, this is personal, so if you don't feel like going there with me, don't. But, and I know in my family it's difficult. We're not the most communicative people, despite what I do for a living, if you can believe that. It's difficult to talk about this stuff, but it's not your professional job. It's your family. Was that a problem for your family? Was it hard to talk about?
Fortunately, my mother took it on and never complained, and I'm sure that it was really hard for her. But she's, just like the doctor said, nope, we can do it all. And nobody said to my mom, are you okay? Do you need help?
And that's the thing, right? It's really hard to stop your mom and say, Mom, are you okay?
Exactly. And now after doing this story, I feel so much guilt for not asking my mom because my grandmother did pass away a couple years ago and my mom did everything. And now I look at her and she's such a saint for being there for her because it's not easy. Well,
it certainly gives you more respect for your mom. And,
100%.
And both of us could potentially be put in that same position someday because
Absolutely.
I don't know what the genetic correlation is here, but you've seen it firsthand.
Yeah, and it is a genetic thing that is passed down, unfortunately. I think that it does go with genes, and I pray to God that we don't have to deal with it, but you always have to be prepared. because these things do happen, and there are more people diagnosed with Alzheimer's these days, and in the past I think that it was more just a dementia, and now they have more of a clear-cut, this is dementia, this is Alzheimer's, and there's different degrees.
Yeah, the other thing we talked about earlier too was the dollar cost associated with this problem here, this global problem. You know, and what we're looking at, and I think you have some figures here, you know, 157 billion, anywhere up to $215 billion every single year for care for these patients.
Amazing.
And this is an issue that was you know, they tried to look at this too with Obamacare in the terms of the end-of-life care, a very huge issue and a very sensitive issue for people as well.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about that, and it also leads into the way that we treat our elderly, regardless of whether they have dementia or Alzheimer's. I think that even doctors could be guilty of the fact that when you come into the doctor's office and you say, oh, my hip hurts.
Right.
And the doctor says, well, you're 80 years old. You know, we're lucky that your other hip's working good. And you look at the doctor and you say, but my other hip is working perfect. So can't we get this bad hip to work perfect also? But I think that a lot of doctors and medical professionals get to that point where they give up and they say, hey, you're lucky to be, but you're not lucky. You can live a great end of life.
And that's another aspect of this as well, because you have to advocate for yourself or for your loved one as a patient, because doctors don't always, they don't always know
100%,
everything
exactly.
that you know. I know that diet plays a role in this as well. Certain things that you eat can cause, that can lead to Alzheimer's. We've seen this in some research.
I've been reading a lot about coconut oil and the benefits of coconut oil for dementia and Alzheimer's. And people are touting the great benefits of these oils. So it is worth a shot. It can't do any harm. Right. Maybe you gain a few pounds here and there. Remember, if you're adding oil to your diet, you need to take out calories somewhere else, because again, like the doctor was saying, it's very easy to gain weight, and it really is just a matter of calories in, calories out.
Always good to throw in a disclaimer. Always talk to your doctor.
Exactly.
Because we're not doctors. We lost Scott McFarlane. He actually had to go do some doctor work. So we'll check back in. Annie, thanks so much for your insight on these health stories.
Thanks,
and we
John.
hope to have you back. It was great seeing you. Of course, we want to hear from everyone at home as well. You can always find us on social media platforms. Tweet me directly, JohnB_Newsmax, or any of us here at the program, Newsmax TV, #America's Forum. Much more to come on the show. We're taking a look at what's leading Newsmax.com. Plus, we'll have more on a look ahead at what's up on the Steve Malzberg Show later today. I'll be right back with more.